The illustrious Jabba bids you welcome. I'm going to regret this.
I'm Pete Mitchell. He's Peyton Jones. And this is the Church Planter Podcast, brought to you by Church Planter Magazine. Hey, Church Planter, this is Pete Mitchell.
And this is Peyton Jones.
And we got a special podcast for you today. I think it's special.
Today, on a very special episode.
I'm feeling special.
Podcast.
You should feel special.
Very special.
Do you know
edition.
that voice? Okay. The audience out there, can you guess this voice in 3 words? I'm feeling special. Did you get that? That's Caesar Kalinowski. If you got that right, then yes, we have Caesar Cal on here.
And bonus points if you can spell his last name.
Oh, it's phonetic,
That's easy.
guys.
That's easy.
More people in my lifetime have misspelled Caesar than Kalinowski. True story.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Kalinowski, phonetic. It scares everybody, you know.
Yeah.
But Caesar, no one's ever written it, even though they've seen it on every menu in their life.
It's that A that feels
the
like it just shouldn't be there.
Doesn't.
Yeah, it's weird, but I like that you go by Caesar Cal. Like that is the best.
Well, just on the Zoom thing here, but that's also my Twitter handle and Instagram stuff. You know, it's like that. But that's because they don't give you that many letters. You can't glue together 16 letters or whatever. Yeah, so.
It's almost Kal-El, like on Superman, and I like that.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Okay.
So first time we ever had you as a guest, I'll never forget. You said something about just don't make any jokes, about the salad, because you will, like many others, think you were the first to make that joke. And that always struck me as really funny because I'm like, man, how many people made that joke thinking they were the first person to make that joke? And if I remember correctly, you went ahead and made it anyway. Of course. We, in the early days, we hung to every guest. Like, you got to know this about us. We literally found ways to make all our guests angry. And I don't know what antisocial disorder that Pete and I have that made us do that. Our greatest moments over the years, we didn't make you mad. We actually really liked you. We're like, he was really cool.
I don't remember getting angry.
No, I don't think we did it that way.
Try harder.
I think we did it in a way.
I cursed you to my wife a lot, but that's just private. That's,
But I think we in the very beginning, we made, if the guy was uptight, we kind of made fun of him. And we'd be having these texts, say this. I don't know, Pete, should we mention some notables?
No, don't.
That we messed with?
I think the best one is the one we always refer to.
Who'd you get really ticked off?
Philip Yancey.
Oh, way to go.
Because Peyton kept calling him Phil. And he's like, Philip. Like he kept correcting Peyton every time he would say
real
it.
Sternly like that?
Hey, Philip.
So we used to make jokes when we would come into the call because Paul had this calling client that would say you are now entering the call, about to drop you in the call. It would say all these rad things. So for me, it was kind of like a dropship trooper, from sci-fi. Like I was about to drop into this like battle zone because it tells you like 2 people are waiting. And so I drop into this call going, woo! And of course, Philip Yancey's sitting there. He's like, hello? Am I in the right place?
Was he a return guest?
No, he was a first time. And now
he's been trying to get him to return and I won't do it.
I told him if we ever close the podcast, he needs to be our final guest. Now, I love that dude. Like, we're honestly, for the audience, just so you know, like, you have to understand what knuckleheads. I would not do this to him again. It made for a great story. But if you think about it, this guy has sat down with Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King Jr., back when he was a journalist. This guy was like a world-class journalist. Like, we're idiots. We should not have done this. I mean, but it made for great stories. Like when I made
You should have been referring to him as Mr. Yancey.
Oh, yes. Heck yeah. Yeah, I did. It's funny because I did geek out over him. So
if I'm not mistaken, isn't Mr. Yancey one of the characters from Pride and Prejudice? Boom, boom. My wife would kill me right now. No, It's something like that. Dorsey, Mr. Dorsey. I don't know.
Mr. Darcy. And
hey, so here's the thing. So here's that, because this is what you got to do. You got to. I think I might be able to trump your ticking off Mr. Yancey story.
Okay, all right.
So there was a time back in the not so long ago, but a while back when Jeff Vanderstelt and I were part of the whole Acts 29 church planning network, and they had. Now I'm totally drawing a blank from Minnesota. It's just huge.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Oh no, I'm totally drawing a blank. Hold on, what's his name?
Oh, it's not Piper, is it?
Yeah, John Piper. Doy. What a doy. So John Piper's there, and he was speaking at a bunch of stuff, but they had a special dinner where a bunch of us got to have dinner with him, right? Just casual and meet him. And so we ended up getting in an argument with him because he was really pushing on what we were saying, like how you make disciples and multiply out community. And that's like, where we're going with this, and it's all of life. If I remember correctly, he was like, no, it's about the pulpit, And so we were like, I'm not sure if it's all about that. Anyway, so we kind of had to like agree to disagree kind of ending, and but we were famous for that though, then within our tribe, because like you guys argued.
You guys took on Piper. That's awesome.
He was probably right and we were wrong. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I'm going to say we were right. No, I don't know.
But that's great.
At the dinner at Exponential, where Peyton and I just go, and there's all these tables of pastors, and we just go and sit down, and we're like, oh, we're sitting right next to Rick Warren.
Well, my first words to Rick Warren, we walk into this place late.
We're at the adult table. Where's the kid table?
Yeah, we walk into this like speakers thing late. And so we take the table by the back of the room, not towards the front where the stage is, back left or back right or whatever it was.
Slipping in.
There's like 3 people at this table, right? That seats 8. And we slink in, and I sit down next to this dude with red hair. And I turn and look, and I recognize it's Rick Warren. And the words out of my mouth are, oh, crap.
I thought you were going to say it was Danny Bottaducci. I was like stoked. I thought that's who you sat down next to.
I did the Spicoli and went, I totally know that dude. But what actually happened was I said, oh crap, I'm at the wrong table. And he grabs me and like doesn't let me go. He like grabs onto my arm and like, like people kind of pull you. He goes, no, brother, you're at just the right table. And he's
a generous man.
Coolest,
very gentle and generous
ever.
Yeah.
We did a whole episode. I didn't know how cool he was. I knew his reverse tithing stuff made him a rock star right away. Like, tell me what I actually was at a baptism this weekend, and someone started crapping on him. And because they're like, oh, did you hear he sent out like Orange County, right? Okay. Did you hear that he sent out, a vaccination, request to his church, yada, yada. And they started crapping on it. And Pete knows this. If you're in my presence and you crap on that dude, I'm going to defend him, because I'm like, whoa. You can't rubbish anyone who reverse tithes in my presence. I don't care what else you got against him. Unless he's
right. That dude's generous.
And I did. I just defended him.
So you pull a Spicoli. I would have been like Chris Farley, like, dude, remember when you wrote that book on purpose? That was awesome. No, actually, I know Rick, but I haven't seen him in a long time. But he's always been the nicest guy. Anything we can do for you, and you call him up and he does it. I mean, he's a great guy.
Man. Yeah. You know him better than we do. We just sat next to him on accident.
I haven't seen him in a long time.
But hey, Caesar, I mean, Acts 29, Soma. I mean,
it was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I've said this before, but you're a guy that I used to listen to you while jogging, because you did these rad like fitness coaching things. You're like, that's right, fatty, keep going, and that was great. No, I'm teasing. No, I used to listen to the. Soma.
I don't even remember that. Wow.
Well, as you can tell, he stopped jogging. It wasn't that he stopped listening to you; it's that Peyton just stopped jogging.
Yeah, then there's no time. Yeah. I don't have any time.
Yeah, because you were so gracious. It was full of grace. No, but I remember listening to the Soma boot camps, and there was like Jeff Vanderstelt, who I knew, and then there's this other guy Caesar on there, and like every other one. And so I started listening. I felt like I started getting to know you through those, just listening to like these grace workshops, and then I read one of your books, and then
oh shucks.
I did. It was good, Missio Publishing, man.
Look at this. Stuff. Look at this right here on my top of my desk.
What? Cha-ching!
Except I read most all of that, so I don't,
Well, you're quoted in that book. So
look at that. Look at how thick that is.
He took 2 pages to acknowledge me.
Wow. 2 pages in or 2 pages long?
So no joke, because the
name Pete and then Mitchell is on the next page. So
I left him out. I left him out of the acknowledgments on the second book, Reaching the Unreached. Cha-ching. So what happened was I told him, I said, I'm going to give you 2 pages of acknowledgments to make up for it. And so that's how it is. It's Pete on one page and it's Mitchell at the top of the next page when I thank him. So I kept true to my word. You're on 2 pages. So anyways, just hearing you over the years, I mean, you've been a part of some really rad movements. You're full of grace, but I think the reason that I respect you, Caesar, is there's a couple things when it comes to discipleship. I interviewed a butt ton of people over the last 8 years who have books or whatever on discipleship. And always when I get to the point where I'm like, it doesn't matter if it's like a book about their neighborhood or ministering, I'll always ask, well, how do you do this whenever it comes to what they do, very frequently, like pastors, right? They can talk from a pulpit, but when it comes to actually doing the crap, they don't do it. So we would draw blanks with our guests who actually are not discipling or not doing what they're talking about. With you, I know it's very different. I sign up to your newsletter. I get your emails. I love them. My favorite email ever is going to lend to what I'm about to say. And that is that there was an email that I got once where it was like, hey, if you got a big group of people, here's a recipe that we cook. And it's super easy. And
salami eggs. I know which one you mean.
It was salami eggs. I remember thinking, this is the best newsletter I've ever gotten from Caesar, because to me, there's 3 things about you. Number 1, you're simple. Your approach to discipleship is simple. And to me, I think discipleship should be simple. And number 2, it's practical. And that email proved that that's what you do. When I consider how I'm going to do it, you tell people very step by step, this is how you do it. It's that leads into the third one, because you actually live it, you do it. That's why it's simple to you. That's why it's practical to you, because you're a practitioner. So I am always gonna be open to having you on here to talk about discipleship, because I know you're a practitioner. You do what you're talking about. You make it simple. Brother. You make it practical. So
thanks. Yeah, we just call it a lifestyle. Once we sort of made that decision, we're gonna live this way, like missionaries sent to another country called U.S. called Tacoma. That it just changed everything, and began to live out of identity. Once the whole thing shifts to this is how we live because it's our identity, then everything flows. It's like we say, birds don't fly because they're supposed to. They fly because they're birds. Like they get to, and that's how I feel about disciple making. Is like we get to be a part of this eternal purpose that Paul says the angels long to look into, this mystery that God was going to fill the world with his glory. How's he going to do that? Through humans, through those jacked up humans. Yeah. Watch this. And so how does that happen? By making disciples of Jesus. Jesus is the glory of God, right? So yeah, getting to do this, what an awesome deal. But it flows right out of our identity and how we were created to live. So Christians who aren't making disciples, it kind of blows my mind. It's like, wow, like, why don't you go ahead and cash that check? It's an awesome birthright here we have,
It's my favorite thing right now. Like I'm discipling a guy. Discipleship for me looks a little bit different, but I literally do this geek hobby with this dude on a regular basis. He comes over and we do that. He's a 20-something-year-old skater punk dude, and but it is literally the highlight. It's the funnest thing I do, literally, because I'm just watching him come to faith. And, so what is your rhythm? You mentioned it being like a lifestyle. Kind of walk us through, unpack that. What does that look like for you and your wife?
For us, a lot of the rhythms of our life include a lot of other people. And what we've learned is that God has created the world in a series of rhythms. You've probably heard me talk about this, but there's a series of rhythms that everybody in the world lives in that are common. And they're all ripe for disciple making and for the gospel being experienced, heard, experienced, touched, applied, all that. And so for us, we realized that there's organized aspects of our life and there's organic aspects of our life. And there's actually a whole lot less organized things. You know what I mean? Like there's not 500 things we organize in a month. There's a handful that lead to all the other organics. And so if we can include people in a few of those organized things, then we have found that it seems like the organic interactions sort of take care of themselves. So for us, we have still like at least a family dinner night a week. That's kind of a big deal. It's kind of locked in. Sometimes there ends up being more than one just because of how that goes. And then that's a perfect opportunity to include other people in that. And that's why sometimes there's more than one, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, this whole group of people, they can't make it to the Team K night, but we're going to do this. Or we'll organize, this is a pretty common one. We organize like either an open table or a happy hour in our neighborhood. And guess what? I'm probably going to have an adult beverage around 5 o'clock most nights anyway, So we're just like, why don't we go ahead and throw that on the Facebook group in the neighborhood and invite people to come to that? So we're organizing it a little, but then the organic interactions of like, oh man, we should go do this. Let's go fishing next week. Like, hey, I've been wanting to get together and talk about this or that with you. Let's do that, man. Let's book that and grab a lunch. And so the rhythms of our life look much like a normal family life, that we bring some intentionality to say, oh, who can we include in some of this stuff?
So I'm really interested. I read a book years ago. I'm sure you've read it. It was Hugh Halter's Happy Hour, which to me is his best book. Like that book, that and Bivo are my two favorites of his. They're little teeny books, but they're so powerful. But describe to me, you mentioned, okay, so I'm going to have an adult beverage. What does that look like? Like, are you cracking a beer out by the fire outside, or are you having like a cocktail hour in the house? Or I know that's super practical. I like to see like, what's that look like? Like, what's it feel like?
I just like to throw out there, I was really disappointed that Hugh didn't sell happy hour in 6-packs. That's how he should have sold that book, but he didn't.
I thought he did. Actually.
Dude's running.
He sold them in packs of 5. It should have been a 6-pack.
Oh yeah, what a miss, right?
Yeah.
What a miss. Yeah. Well, for us, though, it'll change based on the season, right? Our neighborhood, it's interesting because we've done happy hours. Like in New York, we did happy hours, and when we lived in Manhattan, and what we did was we threw up flyers in the hallway of our apartment building, but like right on the mailbox where everybody stops right in the front door, checks their mail every day. And then we lived first floor. So right next to the mailbox at the end of the hall was our door. Wow. And so then we would hang the happy hour thing on our door as well. And then we also invite people that we had met in the neighborhood. So other apartment buildings, that guy at the pub that we run into all the time, this waitress, that barista, whatever. And so I remember the first time we did this, we actually threw a welcome to the neighborhood party. That's how we did it. We said, listen, we're new to the neighborhood. You don't know us, so you shouldn't have to throw us a party. We'll throw our own, but we'd love you to come. And we are from the Midwest at that point, we'd been living out here for a while, but we go out there and we have the thing start like at 5:30 or something, 6 o'clock. There's nobody there. Well, one friend like that was going to do this with me, but nobody's there. And we're like, nobody's there at 6:30. No one's there at 7:30, nothing. We're like, I guess it doesn't work here. And then all of a sudden at 8 o'clock, all these people start showing up.
Whoa.
And it was like, oh yeah. See, when we had just moved there, so we got started right away. We didn't realize everything happens a whole lot later there.
Wow.
So I remember that night about 12:30, 1 o'clock, people are starting to go, bro, I'm so sorry this is so fun. I'm so sorry to bail early, but like I got a 5:30 flight out of JFK. And we're like, it's all right, man. Next time you can stay later, And so then we started doing happy hours that same way. And so all it was is we would throw up a flyer and we would, I think we went up and down the stairs. It was only like 10 apartments in our building, very common New York sort of walk up. It wasn't some giant complex, right?
Yeah.
And we would put flyers, on everybody's, like under their doormat or whatever, and then post it. And people just came. It was not a big deal.
So awesome.
And everybody brought a little something, a beverage of choice. And that's kind of how we do it too. So here now we're back in, Seattle area. Our neighborhood had a bit of a tradition of doing what they call driveway happy hour. You post in the Facebook group, hey, driveway happy hour tonight, our house. And we'd go and people would be there. And so we started saying, well, listen, we all have really nice back decks and fireplaces and ours is covered. So like it could be pouring rain and twinkle lights and all that. So we started doing them in the back and people didn't seem to care. And it was just that way. We'd do it on the deck. we'd have appetizers and a few beverages. Everybody brought tons. And so there was always more you needed. People here, though, brought their kids. And so they'd be out in the yard. So then we'd have to cook food for the kids because the parents didn't want to leave. And I'm like, you should probably feed your kids some dinner. It's like 7:30, And that's how it went. Now, when COVID hit, we started doing driveway happy hours, and we invited people to our driveway because it was outside, it was out front. It seemed a little less creepy. And we did the first one. We said, hey, I know everybody's social distancing. So here's the social distance version of the happy hour. We're going to do it out on our driveway, and we invite you to do the same thing, and we'll wave at each other. And at this time of the evening, we'll walk around and we'll just walk past everybody else's happy hour in the neighborhood, and we'll see each other. So, apparently they didn't read that very well, and just a ton of people showed up at our driveway. So that was like in May or something, last year. So it was like, whoa, is this okay? And we had all the chairs super set out far apart, and everybody, we had hand sanitizer and gloves if you wanted to pour something. But so we started doing them out front again. Now we've been able to shift them back indoor if it's, late or cold or raining or whatever, or in the back again. So, but my wife really fell in love with doing the out front thing. And she's trying to talk me into taking one of the garage stalls in the smaller skinny door, and then just building a wall about 12 feet back and building a little, so all we have to do is up the door and there's a little built-in bar like that.
What?
So, yeah. So she's pushing hard for that.
Okay. So that your wife is she's like Q on the James Bond, headquarters. That's like James Bond discipleship level right there. If you do that, that's like having a stiletto shoe.
Yeah.
Or discipleship.
Well, we started dragging our bar from the back deck out to the front driveway on Halloween. And we put out a fire pit and a big old ring of chairs. And
there's Caesar again, dragging his bar out into the front yard.
Well, it just sounds like everything we do revolves around that. It's not true.
No,
but
I got you.
It is a rhythm that sort of people are surprised at, especially if they figure out you're a pastor or a church planter.
It's kind of like the Pharisees, what they said about Jesus, right? He's a glutton and a wine bibber. It sounds familiar.
That's us. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway,
I love it.
So that's some of the rhythms that we sort of incorporate and try to do that with like in a predictable pattern, some sort of a regular rhythm that people can start to count on. So,
dude, well done. Because
wide open.
I'll ask those kinds of questions and people don't get in the weeds. That's exactly what I was hoping you would paint for us as a picture just like that. It was super helpful, man, because I like to envision what people are doing, how they make it work. Because I think there's not really a ton of rules, right? About this.
I'll tell you what, we like to theme things. Like when we do meals too, happy hour, we always theme it so people know how to participate and they know what to look forward to. It's a little marketing. We do the same thing with happy hour. We'll usually, not always, but usually we'll have a special cocktail of the evening. Wow. And that'll be our contribution. We'll say, hey, we're going to be making these. If you want anything else, just bring that.
Right. I love it, man. That's so good. So like one night might be like margarita night, or one night might be Manhattan night when you're living in Manhattan.
Yep. We did a 70s dinner party, old timey 70s dinner party, and had a bunch of people over for that. And we did like steaks, like old school doing it, and like the baked potato, like everything we remember from steakhouses when we were kids, and we did Manhattans, and the dessert was that. It was very, very.
Do you know the Big Lebowski yet? Everyone's got White Russians.
You know what? A friend of ours did a birthday party, and it started out, a Big Lebowski, and then we all went to the bowling alley, and they all had the sweaters and the whole thing, and the White Russians was what we started. Yeah, we didn't put that one on, but I've been to that.
Nice.
No, man, that's so good.
Yeah,
so good. Wow, dude abides. So I have 2 Easter eggs in Church Zero, cha-ching, from the Big Lebowski. So
nice.
Yeah, they're hidden. But
the rug.
Most pop culture is overt in that book, but I got 2 hidden Lebowski references.
The rug. I remember the rug.
That's right. Ooh. I summarized an argument by saying, let's throw down the rug that really ties a room together. And Lebowski fans are like, that was awesome. I got that. So so that's so cool, man. So tell us a little bit about, because you run courses on discipleship. Who have typically been the people that enroll in your courses?
Well, we offer courses, and then we do a lot of coaching, as you know. And we even have a membership, like we call it the incubator, for folks who want to kind of get all the soup to nuts tools and stuff. But they're not yet engaged in the coaching level.
How's
for
that
us,
going, by the way? Because I remember you launching that.
Yeah, it's been a blast, man. I love it. It's done very well, and I love it. I really do. And I love it gives us a broader relational base with folks. I'd say, if I was to tell you the width of who engages in like the coursework and all that, it's pretty wide. I'll tell you who's really a blast to do it with is, leaders who already have a little something going on, so like maybe a person who is leading a church or maybe they're in charge of like the small group ministry or, missional communities or whatever. And they've been trying some stuff. So they're already in their mind. They're like, yeah, but they go, but we really don't have a framework to really do this or reproduce this in others. And those are my favorite folks to do it with. Now we do it with all kinds of people who just are like, also a blast to do it with. Is like a couple will just say, hey, our church does none of this. We've been listening to your podcast, the Everyday Disciple podcast, cha-ching. And it has encouraged us to want to live this way. So we want to, would you help us? And absolutely. And what it is they don't know they're planting church, right? Until they do. And then you're like, oh yeah, wow. Look at all these people in your life who are now in the rhythms of your life and starting to learn more and more about Jesus and walking his ways and trust him in more and more areas. And you're like, yeah, that's
a big part. I mean, there'll be a podcast that will be starting up probably in January for me, but it takes that whole concept. It's not original. I mean, but working with people who are church planting accidentally, really. Through discipling. I'm not ready to let the cat out of the bag yet, but it literally is it is a fact. If you disciple, church planting just happens. It is the core of what church planting is. When you start discipling people, you're going to have a church plant, whether you like it or not. That's what started the Methodist movement. Wesley, the thing that separated him from Whitefield was he said, I can't just blow through a town, preach a gospel, make converts. I have to do something with them. So he starts the bands, the societies, the little small groups, the experience meetings.
Yeah.
They're discipleship groups. Don't need a leader. Don't need it literally everybody sat around and talked about what's
Same with the CNMA.
What is it?
Same with the Christian Missionary Alliance.
Really?
Yeah, they started what they called branch communities. They said, we don't really matter what church you feel connected to, but this part of our city is really underserved and does not have a gospel witness, and they would never come to our churches. So in our neighborhoods, we're going to help you organize these things. They called them branch communities, and they discipled people to faith. And those things multiplied like crazy. And then eventually those people wanted to be able to worship together and, sit under the same type of teaching. But it was from that. Yeah.
That's so cool. Are you CMA?
No, not officially. I was licensed CMA when we were in New York because we were working with them out there. Yeah. But they still, their missionary roots are very strong still.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, you never hear bad things about the CMA. And of course, Tozer, right?
Well, and I didn't even know that at first. Like, man, one of my favorite authors. Like, I got every single book of his. And it's like,
right?
Yeah, CMA guy, Chicago.
CMA.
Too. Thank you very much.
Chicago. There we go. It's my kind of town. And the thing about Wesley though was they kept trying to get him to leave Anglicanism until the day he died. He was a diehard Anglican, and he refused to allow this movement that by the time of his death was 10% of the population. Imagine that. And he's like, no, these are just discipleship groups. Well, they were churches. They were becoming churches. Like that ship had long sailed. All of his followers are like, dude, we just planted thousands and thousands of churches. Why don't we just be what we are? And finally, when he died, they waited for him to kick. And then they said, yeah, we're the Methodists now. But
gotcha.
That whole thing though, that discipling people, I love that you brought up that accidental church planting.
And I'll tell you, the not accidental church planter, that's sort of my original tribe, right? Because we're serial church planters. And right now, what's been a blast is how many church planters are being sent to plant, and they're not really being forced to plant a church service. They really are being, it feels like more than ever, encouraged and allowed to plant communities that make disciples. We call them missional communities, regardless of what people call them. But like start that way, multiply out leaders who know how to multiply out disciple making communities, and then get to recongregate that. Now that's what we were doing back in Soma, and Soma still largely does around the world for years now. And for us, it was just an easier model. What we have found is when you start that way, the type of church you get is so different and so nimble and so lightweight. And you can really do almost anything with it. I'm even seeing articles from the non sort of tribe people, where they're not necessarily missional community believers, but they're going, how come some churches seem to have thrived during COVID and others are gone? And they're kind of going like scratch their head going, seems like the nimble ones that were primarily community based and smaller, but multiplied out there, those have just kind of chugged right along. Yeah.
That's rad. That's so good, dude.
So I love helping folks start, when they're planting that way early. Let's get that DNA in there. Let's not try to figure out how to talk a bunch of consumers who you stole from other services into living this way. Let's live this way and then congregate those folks. It'll be like a big, huge family reunion then when you get together, for worship and teaching and all that.
I love it. Right now, the Mark Driscoll, Who Killed Mars Hill, with you being from that area, it's interesting.
I heard plenty about that, my friend. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I still have a little mixed feelings about it. Like, this guy can't talk about himself. He can't defend himself. He can't, I'm maybe not with everybody on this. I can't look away. It's like a bad car wreck. I can't stop listening to it. It's so well done. But there's a piece of me where I'm like, I don't know, man. But going back to that, I think that everybody's talking about the lessons, which are always going to be good, right? Because
who's got music in the background going on?
Sorry, that's my Finnish carpenter. No, my daughter's learning to play the satyr. Is it the satyr or the? No, I'm just teasing. It's my Finnish carpenter. I apologize.
Playing bagpipes while he's working.
Yes, is nice. Can you hear that? Is it picking it up?
All right.
I apologize, man. It's he's doing something good on my house somewhere. but anyways, my how do you kind of help folks navigate as it starts to become a church? Some of these people didn't see themselves leading communities. How do you help them to minister in the way of Jesus?
I'm not quite getting that question there. You mean like as things start to multiply?
As opposed, yeah, because a lot of people are, obviously, one of the great problems with leaders and ministers nowadays is that when things just kind of grow organically and they don't understand leadership, I would say the majority of leaders don't actually understand leadership, that it's servant, it's not hierarchical, it's not authority, it's not those kinds of things.
You lead by influence, not by authority.
Yeah. You inspire people. You get out in front of them. You lead the charge. When people are like, I don't want to do that, it's like Paul, don't go and fight with them, gently instruct them, be patient, they're sheep. I mean, that's, we don't really hear a lot about that. And I think the one good thing about that podcast is that it's kind of highlighting the dangers, the inherent dangers of leadership itself, right? Because we're busted up and we're broken. But what are some ways that as you lead people to disciple and it starts becoming a community of believers, how do you kind of train them to lead? Like, what are some of the things that as they're just discipling, but now suddenly they're leading a community, there's a transition. How do you train them to lead in the ways of Jesus?
It seems that as things are healthy, they always grow. And we tell people that all the time. Healthy things always grow. A healthy community, in other words, the rings of your family life that feel like the kingdom of God is touched down, going outward to include more and more other people, that's a healthy growing thing. It will. It's a kingdom principle. As they grow, though, you start to run into some family size issues, which are going to necessitate multiplication, not splitting like a divorce, but like multiplication. And so then it's a matter of, are you taking that discipleship further up the slope into leadership development, actually? And we really do believe that leadership, developing leaders, is just their further discipleship up further up the slope to greater maturity. And we use a very small little acronym for this that a friend of mine, John Whitty, taught me this years ago. He's a Baptist missionary forever and ever. It's called MAWL, M-A-W-L. It's kind of, we talk about mauling people. It's a bit of a weird acronym, right? But, and I'm not huge on acronyms, but it's model, assist, watch, and leave. In other words, you've been modeling a lot of stuff for people, but if they didn't know you were specifically modeling things, right? Systems, the way you gospel, people's hearts, how you have a meal, what you do with your neighbors, how you discipline your kids, all that stuff. If you've just been modeling it, but they don't know it, then they haven't been paying attention. So when the leaders, you want to say, hey, I want to start developing you in these things so that we can multiply you out. So I'm going to model them. I want you to pay attention. Then we're going to go to assist. You're going to help me doing this for a while. Then we're going to flip that and I'm going to assist you. Okay. And then I'm going to watch you do it. I'm not going to mess with you. I'm not going to save it. I'm not whatever the skill is, the environment that you're wanting them to learn how to experience, reproduce, and all that. And then I'll give you some feedback on that. Eventually, I'm going to leave you to do it, and you're going to need to innovate it and make it your own and all that. But by taking all of those steps, what people get is they get great courage, because usually what we do, and this is my own, I'll bust myself here. My tendency is I've been modeling this like crazy. They have to have gotten it by now. It's yours now, Peyton, and I'll just leave you alone because I don't want to micromanage you. You're a dude. You got it. And you're like, yeah, but I have so many, and people feel that's not leadership. That's not non-micromanagement. That's just abdication. Just like, well, we're so big now, you have to take it over. When you actually maul people, model, assist, watch, and then leave them be, and they know that's the process, they feel confident because you're not going to leave me alone to do this until I've helped you, you've helped me, you've watched, given me feedback a few times, and then you're going to leave it alone. And then we also teach them, come back around, check on folks, like Paul did. And so this is some of the intentionality that we bring to regular folks who are multiplying out their missional communities busting, certainly with church planners who are thinking, I really want to multiply out these missional communities. Then you're going to have to keep your eye on who are you apprenticing. And that means you have to very intentionally model, assist, watch, and lead, kind of thing. So those are really some of the framework that we kind of think through and then pass on.
Well, and I asked that because
let me ask you a question here real quick, Peyton. When you're doing your community dinners and stuff, how does the gospel get into that? Is it just, hey, we're breaking bread, so to speak, with our neighbors, and as stuff comes up, or how does it go from just a meal together to sharing the gospel?
So the conversations that happen with our neighbors, like at an open table or a happy hour, are different level conversations than what's going on with the believers in our community or oikos level. Do you know what I mean? They just are. And I think that's what flips a lot of people out. They think like, oh, if we're going to start doing this, now we got to have a box full of transitional statements to get them in, to these spiritual discussions like we used to be taught by Willow Creek Association. You're at the gym and you're running along, and then you say to somebody this, and then, there's a parallel, there's a pun to that. And then you flip, boom, and now you're in a spiritual conversation. We're not really doing that with people. We talk about those like happy hours, Pete, or open table that we're doing in the neighborhood or whatever, having folks over. Those are high invitation and low challenge. In other words, they're easy to hang out. Like everybody can come, bring your friends. I don't care who you bring. Come on. It's high invitation, but it's low challenge. We're not trying to say, oh, thanks for coming tonight. Now we want to invite you all to Alpha. Boom. It's too much relational challenge too soon. You need to bank enough invitation to build trust. Later on, you can spend that as challenge. Now, in those who have come to faith or are Christians who are involved in this with us, we're having very different types of conversations and equipping going on and different things like that, where we see a big cross-pollination of these things. And maybe this is like what you're looking for is when we do the story of God in community, it's always a mixture of people of peace, those friends, and maybe they used to be church attenders or they're not so much no more, or they might be atheists or they're just not sure, but they're leaning into relationship. They're people of peace. We'll take them through the story of God with the believers in our community. And it's a process, and it's done in such a way that no one gets to be the Bible answer man, the expert. It's narrative and dialogical. And the way that we manage that and the way that we teach others to do that is it's level. You can only answer the questions for the dialogue portion from within the story. So you can't quote some old Piper sermon or Swindoll thing you remember hearing when you were a kid, or, or a book you read on Keller. Your answers have to come from, okay, where did you see that in the story? And that keeps the ground level. So that would be one of those times that we would really cross-pollinate those kinds of things. But there's a whole series of steps to get there. So how do you invite like a neighbor to do something like the story of God with you? Well, over time. It's not like the first time I meet him, like, you want to do this? It takes time. You think about Jesus was 3.5 years with his disciples, pretty much, all day, every day, something like 30,000 waking hours. I figured out once. And, Matthew 28 at the ascension, it says the 11 that were still alive, they were there with them as they watched him ascend into the sky, with nail holes in his hands and feet. And some still did not believe. Wow. Apparently this takes time. So we don't have a problem building relationships.
Looking at you, Pete.
Banking invitation. Yeah, looking at you, Pete. Banking invitation so that we can then up the relational challenge as we go. So
that's awesome. Well, hey, you've got, speaking of challenges. Yeah, speaking of challenges, you have a discipleship challenge coming up. That's why we want to get you on here. Talk to us a little bit about what that is, because I really want to see people get this part. If you plan a church, let's put it this way. If you start a church, going back to plantology, cha-ching, right? Starting a church is not the same as planting a church. Planting a church, you pop the hood, you look and see what's running the thing. It's discipleship. It's what you're talking about. So I hate it when people go out and they're going to start a Sunday service, because that's starting a church, and it's not what I read about in the book of Acts. Yeah. I want to learn to disciple. So talk to us about the discipleship challenge. What is it? How can people get involved?
Thanks, man, for letting me talk about that a little bit. I'm pretty excited about it. We call it the Everyday Disciple Challenge, and it's this idea of making discipleship part of everyday life. And I think we're seeing more than ever the church really desiring that and going, hey, 30% of our people have come back to a gathering of sorts, but that's still back to 1.8 times a month or whatever. Well, what about the other bulk of our folks? Well, they're starting to experience their faith a lot more on the ground, and they want to know how to do this as families and with a few neighbors and all that. And so we've done this challenge several times and had thousands of people through it and seen great breakthroughs. What we do is over 4 days, I do about 45 minutes a day of live teaching. We do it on the internet here. People, just tune in and they can see it on the internet. And we give them worksheets, and we give them a little bit of homework each day. And I'm talking really a little bit, because, it's like you can't take the week off, right? But just to get them into some new rhythms and trying some new things, trying on for size, some newer understandings of their identity. Like, hey, if that were true, pick this or this or this, and let's have that, part of your life this week. And we see people have instant wins, instant breakthroughs, and go, wait a minute, I'm starting to get the idea of what it would look like to have discipleship happen in everyday life. And so it's a very decided 4 days what we teach. The first day, we talk about, what is discipleship actually? Because that's even not even agreed upon. And for a lot of people, myself included, the way I was raised, discipleship was a series of classes. It was either a 9-week thing early on in my life, with really short little meetings and just topical, or then later on, once the whole, 101, 201, 301, 401 thing got mapped on, that was it. And then you sit in a big auditorium, 500 people at a time, 1,000 people, go through your 101, 201, and then you're discipled. It's like, no, that's not what I see Jesus doing, And so we give a practical working definition and framework for discipleship, that it'll actually change how people see their faith and all of that. That's what we do day 1. And day 2, we get deep into gospel identity, which is really the foundation. It really is. Understanding our gospel identity, our true identity, it changes our motivations. It starts to push right up on that, like, well, I'm too busy and I don't have time for this, and why would I do that? Or I fear the way people are going to respond to me. And we start to get into a little bit of that. Like, if you believe your identity, most Christians have not been taught their identity. We hear things like, well, your identity is now in Christ. True. And what they mean by that is, so when you stand before God, he's going to look at you like Jesus. True. But we're created in God's own image, and he's a triune God. So you're also created in the image of the Spirit of God and Father. And so there's great implication because of all that. So we get into that. On the third day, we talk about these natural discipleship rhythms that I was telling you about, there's like 6 rhythms we see everybody in the world lives in.
So
doesn't matter when or where or now or 100 years ago or Africa, Canada, here, Chicago, and then day 4, we talk about how do you start to balance this out? How do you know what to do and balance this out? So it's not like you throw a light switch and now that's what people hear. They think, oh, we're going to live like you. It's a light switch. We're going to have so many people around all the time. Oh my God, it'll never fit our schedule. Promise you it will. When you look at these rhythms, and we'll give you some tools for balance.
Plus, it just makes life rich. Like you'll look back on different times of your life, and what will stick out to you about the good stuff are these things that are happening. This is the good stuff.
Oh yeah, 100%. So that's how it goes. And that we do that 4 days. It's about 45 minutes a day, and then people post their homework, on the site, on the Facebook group, and what we just to even encourage folks, we enter every homework post you post, you get entered in to win a prize. And if you post a live takeaway video, like, hey man, this really hit my heart hard, you get 3 entries. And I give out prizes throughout the week just to bless people, just because I want you to get through it. I don't want you to blow it off, and we'll even make the replays available for folks. And a lot of smart leaders, what they've been doing is they get their folks signed up with them and they watch it either live, which is really the best way, because then you can ask questions and all that, or they'll watch the replay, and then they get on Zoom that night and they discuss it, the implications for their own community. All right, tomorrow. So they have 4 little things and they do that. And then I'm not in the room. So if there are people who are afraid or disagree, or I don't like that guy or whatever, I'm not there. I don't care.
Right.
But now it's been taught, and it's been taught, I think, well, and you get to feed back on that and push back on it and talk through that. So a lot of people, when we do these challenges, they sign up their teams or they'll send it out to their whole church, and then they do their own little Zoom meetings and discuss it. So yeah, it'll give people the beginning framework for making disciples in everyday life and prove to them, if they engage it, they'll see in baby steps, wow, we can do this. At age and stage doesn't really matter. Little kids, no kids, empty nest, single, we can do this. So, by the way, it's all free. If folks want to enroll in that, I would love it. They can go to everydaydisciple.com/challenge. Okay, everydaydisciple.com/challenge.
And if you guys get my newsletter, my email, I'm not getting any money from Caesar for this.
Well, this is free.
I don't have a percentage. I don't have a cut of this.
Percentage of free. I want all of it.
I'm literally promoting this through my newsletter. If you sign up to my newsletter, I don't get a cut of this. I'm not in this for money, but literally I believe in what Caesar does. And I've sent this out. So if you've gotten my newsletter at ministryninja.com or newbreednetwork.org, if you signed up to either newsletter, this has gone out to you. So you'll have this in your inbox today.
Now this thing is starting on Monday, the 16th here of August.
Which is the day this airs. So
does it?
Those of you on Facebook, you're getting this, but can they sign up still by Monday?
They totally can. And if you register, I'm going to send you a daily email with links to the replays, and I'll leave the replays up for a few days, but then I pull them down. People are like, why don't you just let them up there forever? Because then you'd never watch them. And you never do the homework, and I can't feed back forever. So we say, hey, listen, we're going to go live for 4 days. I end up usually doing, because it's so fun, I usually end up doing an extra few days, some bonus training, answering questions. It's a little more practical. We get super, super practical. And then I pull it down.
Nice.
And I tell people, I'm not being mean. Now you'll watch it.
That's true. That's 100% true.
So.
Yeah, I love it. And you can't just put this crap off forever either. Part of what you're doing is this is a lifestyle. You're either in it or you're not. So it's like the gym.
Everyday Disciple Challenge is the funnest thing we do. I've done it a few times now. Like I said, thousands of people have been in it with us. It is so fun. It is just so fun to see the light bulbs going on of like, I've been in church for 30 years and I never understood this. And this is so easy and fun now, or
I might jump in this round and take it. I actually might jump in and take it right now.
Because
we're in a discipleship rhythm right now, and we're just getting ready to plant again. So
we're definitely in some sort of a new normal, and it ain't normal. And so I'm going to kind of customize all of this time for what we're kind of experiencing and facing, and try to answer the questions based on all that. So
Nice. Well, while you're doing all this discipleship, Pete, obviously you've got a lot of finances and things that you got to handle, IRS compliancy. How do you handle that with all your discipleship rhythms, Pete?
I'm so grateful that you asked me, Peyton, because I use a little something called simplifychurch.com.
What?
Yes, simplifychurch.com.
You're kidding me.
Out with all my IRS compliancy and everything else I got to do.
Wow, it sounds as simple as the discipleship challenge. It sounds simple, practical, and something that's actionable. Pete, simplifychurch.com, that's where I go?
That's exactly it.
Hey, and when you're done there, head on over to sermonboss.com. Sermonboss.com will help people watch your videos, listen to your audios, including your podcast, and any kind of media you have, including social media, without taking you away from your website. So head on over to sermonboss.com. And that's our sponsors done. And they don't pay us money either. We swap trade. So we're not
like,
fat cats.
Is that how you go on
here.
a big, huge 4-week vacation to Hawaii every year? They
do call them junkets. Yes.
Yes. When I was a Baptist minister, I got free cruises, but those days are long gone. So here's the deal, guys. Thanks for joining us. This has been Caesar Cal. Caesar, where did they go one more time?
They can register for that Everyday Disciple Challenge for free by going to everydaydisciple.com/challenge.
All right. So, guys, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks,
this has
guys.
Been Peyton Jones and Pete Mitchell and Caesar Kalinowski reminding you, if you want to reach the ones nobody's reaching, go where nobody's going and do what nobody's doing.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Church Planter Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Peyton Jones. We'd love to hear your comments on this episode of the Church Planter Podcast. Visit us online and let us know what you thought at churchplanterpodcast.com. If you subscribe to us via iTunes and have enjoyed the podcast, leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive in iTunes, the more iTunes will promote us to other church planners who would benefit from this show. This podcast is brought to you by the Church Planter Magazine, which is available in the iTunes newsstand or online via churchplantermagazine.com.